Apologies here received from Councillor Yates. Any others?
Councillor Strain Francis.
Okay, so moving on to item 2, to note declarations of members' interests. So I need to declare.
6, 7 and 10.
Yes. We're on the same sheet, aren't we?
I think so, yeah.
Right, okay, so for item 3, to confirm and sign the minutes of the Operations Improvements Committee meeting held on the 3rd of October 2023, and that the minutes are approved as a true record of the meeting. So, can I have a proposed? Thank you. Second? Thank you. Okay, all those in agreement? Okay, those not. And any abstentions?
Wasn't there.
Okay. So item 4 is public participation, a period not exceeding 50 minutes for members of the public to ask questions or submit comments in relation to the published agenda items.
So I haven't received any submissions or questions ahead of this meeting.
Okay. That's it?
Yeah.
Great. So then we'll move on to item 5. This is to note the year-to-date financial position for the Operations and Improvements Committee. So this is the year-to-date financial position. Are there any comments or questions? No? So noted. Great. Thank you very much. So item 6, to consider the matters related to the Crewe Heritage Centre. So again, this is a note. Obviously, thank you very much for the report, much appreciated. So again, any comments or questions? Yes.
Well, I'll say it's a report for noting and very interesting it was too. That's all I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, count as noted. Thank you. So on to item 7, to consider matters related to the Crewe Heritage Delivery Plan.
Okay, so as mentioned in the paper is an update on progress against the business delivery plan for 23-24. There are a couple of requests and notes within it. The first is relating to the plaque scheme. We have £1,500 allocated to the plaque scheme this year. We would like to use this to develop an engagement project with schools and the wider community. We have had discussions with the UTC about designing a project where children from schools within the parish boundary would be able to research, nominate and debate people in Crewe past who deserve a plaque, design and create a plaque for the school's chosen nomination, and then work with the UTC to create the plaque for a temporary exhibition somewhere within the town. If agreed, the project would also allow us to raise the profile of the scheme and collect further suggestions for plaques from the community. The paper also noted that the development of plaques for Ada Neil Chew was with the South Cheshire Chamber of Commerce and Industry to agree. I can confirm that they have now agreed that, so we will be ordering the plaque to Ada in the near future. In terms of the rest of the Making Heritage Visible part of the paper, the engagement resources, there has been a lot of progress and feedback from the piloting of the school's workshops around Crewe Works and the learning packs. That has been wholly positive, and changes that were recommended have now been implemented, so those are coming to the end of their development. Under building community, I am just asking members to note that the grant previously agreed with for funding support and engagement around a statue for Ada was originally the request was made by Cheshire Women's Collaboration. A statue for Ada has now formed properly, so we are able to move that grant directly to the statue for Ada group. Under protecting heritage assets, I just wanted to highlight the work on the conservation area appraisal and management plan. Work is now underway to develop a conservation area appraisal, and the CEL UK have been appointed, and a stakeholder group which consists of the chair of the planning committee, the Cheshire East Conservation Officer for Crewe, the chair of the Railway Cottages Residents Association, the chair of our heritage group, and the built heritage representative of our heritage group, plus myself, are acting as the stakeholder group for that project. Stage 1, which was an initial desk-based research project around defining the possible areas for consideration, is now complete, and the consultants have been on site last week to begin that walking around the town to see where those heritage assets are, so that they can begin to develop the shortlist. But a full report will go to the planning committee on the 29th of January. So there are some proposals for the remaining budget. At this point, I have £5,000 allocated for heritage engagement resources, £2,890 left unallocated from the heritage community support budget line, and £3,000 which is unallocated. Because of the nature of the projects already underway, being funded by earmark reserves and grants, such as the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, we'd like to propose combining those three lines to fund a bid writer to secure a learning officer for the Heritage Centre. As you've noted, the papers have shown the significant changes and pace of development at the Heritage Centre, and to help this continue, additional support is required. The next stage will be building awareness and engagement with the centre. Initiatives such as the exhibition, which was funded by the Town Council over summer, saw an increase of 136% on visitors, and a learning officer would be able to further develop things like this, including regularising the engagement with schools and community groups. This will be essential to demonstrate to any large-scale funders, and is therefore something to begin building sooner to progress the ability for funders to move forward on any proposals. The proposal is therefore to combine the budget to create an earmarked reserve of £10,890 to appoint a freelancer to write applications with a view to generating funding in the region of £100,000 for a learning officer over a 2-year period. So to be clear, it is to fund the writing of the applications. It will not be funding any of the learning officer role once the project becomes underway is successful. If agreed, this would give a resource to deliver further heritage engagement resources and heritage community support above what is achievable with the lines as they stand at the moment. It would also allow us to develop the school workshops and deliver the community consultation necessary for future large-scale funding. So just to go through the considerations for this report, to consider for approval the proposals to allocate the 2023-24 budget allocation of £1,500 for plaques to deliver a school engagement project with the Crewe Engineering Design UTC. To consider for approval the proposal to combine the remaining 23-24 budget of £10,890 to appoint a freelance bid writer to secure grant funding income for a Crewe Heritage Centre learning officer. To note the grant of £1,000 to the statue for Ada Group agreed under Resolution OI 2318(3) will be made direct to the group instead of via Cheshire Women's Collaboration. And to note the establishment of a stakeholder group to work with the CEL UK to deliver the conservation area appraisal and management.
Thank you. Okay, so I've got the considerations here in front of me. I don't know if there's any other questions that anyone has before we go through the considerations. Councillor Ryan.
Just to clarify my head, two things. So we're looking at £10,000 in order to generate a possible £100,000. And what can you, in one sentence, can you tell us, say, the difference between the learning officer and an education officer.
It would be a learning officer, which would be responsible for formal learning, which is schools and education,
Yeah.
and informal learning, which is things like trails, programming offers, some workshops that community or visitors can take part in.
Thank you.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah. This £100,000, can you say how long this would fund an officer?
Yeah, so we've worked out on a salary that would require a cost of about £80,000 over 2 years, and then a £20,000 budget, but it's in the region, it may be £120,000.
So it's about a 2-year project.
2-year project.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Good. Okay then, so in terms of the considerations, the first one is to consider for approval the proposal to allocate the 2023-24 budget allocation of £1,500 for plaques to develop and deliver a school engagement project with the Crewe Engineering and Design UTC. So who would like to propose? Thank you, Councillor White. A second? Thank you very much. Fantastic. So all those in favour?
Yeah.
I think that's unanimous. Okay. Thank you. The second is to consider for approval the proposal to combine the remaining 2023-24 budget of £10,890 to appoint a freelance bid writer to secure grant funding income, which is approximately £100,000, for a Crewe Heritage Centre learning officer. So again, I need a proposer. Councillor White, yeah. Seconder. And all those in favour?
Can I say, Chair, the proposal is to consider for approval. So are we recommending approval? That's the decision we're being asked to take, isn't it?
Yes.
We've considered it or not. The case may be.
It's to consider for recommendation to council because it would
no.
count over £10,000. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just over the £10,000. You can approve £10,000 and above that it goes to council for ratification.
I mean, if that's clarified, that's fine.
So again, so I wasn't. So that's I didn't. Should we just start again in terms of those two all in favour? All those against? An abstention?
I'm abstaining because, to be quite honest, nobody's told me what happens if this person doesn't secure that amount of funding. And having done the job of bid writing many times when I was at Crewe Alex, £100,000 is the maximum you can apply for on the Awards for All system. And it's incredibly difficult to actually hit that figure. So I'm just wondering what happens to this person we appoint if they don't hit that magical figure in the 2 years. What happens? Do they just walk away? Do we keep them on, or, you know? It's a bit like, how long is a piece of string?
Yes, Councillor.
Well, as far as I understand this, and it's 10,890. That's for the appointment of the freelance writer, and then £100,000 if successful. If it's successful, then there's a 2-year or so contract.
So that £100,000 will fund that 2-year contract?
Yes.
Will do nothing for the Heritage Learning Centre as such? It's just for the officer?
So it would fund the officer and resource a project within the region of £20,000 to £40,000, but that needs to be defined by the bid writer.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, this might be naive to me, so forgive me. Why do you need a bid writer? Why can't somebody within the council do it? I don't understand why you would actually need to allocate that kind of money to do that job when essentially it is, you know, when you're applying for funding, I'm sure somebody in the council offices is quite apt to actually do that. I don't know, that's why I said it.
No.
It's probably a naive question.
No,
But I'm asking it anyway.
I think quite honestly to be able to put the right buzzwords that they are looking for it's a full-time job.
Really?
You'd have to take a member of staff off task
Right,
for a matter of months to put that bid together.
right, okay, fair enough.
It's a very, very specialised thing
Is
to
it?
do. Oh
Fair
yeah.
enough. I thought I'd ask.
And it's only 10,800 at the end of the day.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask.
Okay, is there anything else you from council?
No, as far as I understand, that the vote has been in favour of the
Yeah,
proposal.
in that case, yeah.
Yes, so we're clear on that.
Okay, it's in
Thank
favour.
you.
Thank you. Okay, so next one is just to note the grant of £1,000 to the Statue for Ada Group agreed under Resolution OI 2318 that will be made direct to the group instead of via the Cheshire Women's Collaboration. So are there any comments and questions on that before we note it? Noted. Thank you. And then finally on this item, to note the establishment of a stakeholder group to work with Purcell UK to deliver the Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan. So again, any comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Moore.
I suppose, and I'm sure we've gone through this, but you know, the company Purcell UK, I suppose there was various other companies, and then these have been chosen as to be the best ones. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
There were 13 applications to the contract, which was scored, and Purcell came out on top.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so we say as noted. Fantastic. Okay. So now on to item 8, and that's to consider matters relating to the Crewe Business Improvement District.
Thank you. So, this committee will be aware that in November 2023, a majority of businesses who were liable to pay a levy towards a bid were invited to ballot, and the majority voted in favour of a business improvement district. The bid will be live, shall we say, from April of this year. So the work is continuing at the moment now to set up a bid company, so the Crewe Bid Company, which will have directors based from the levy-paying businesses, and to select other board members to set up the articles, if you like, for the organisation, its governance, etc. So the Town Council initiated this project and paid for the development of the Business Improvement District, running a tender, bringing in groundwork to run that development process, which was quite a complex process. We're now in the position, after that, that the Council, which has actively supported this, is potentially able to just walk away from the project and the bid, should it so wish, although I doubt this council would wish to do that, having initiated and invested in the whole process. The business improvement plan, the business development plan for the bid allows for the town council, should it be minded, to claim back the costs it invested in the development of the business improvement district. Because of the property ownership and the rates payable by the town council, the town council will not be a member, it won't be a levy payer within the bid area, so it won't automatically be a member of the business improvement district or have any sort of representation on the board, although the town council will probably be invited to have an advisory capacity on that bid board. Unlike Cheshire East Council, which is committed and voted in favour of the bid and is a levy payer, and which will be contributing about £16,000 a year on current rentable values to that business improvement district. So the consideration I would and guidance I would like from committee today is, how would you like to treat the investment that's been made in the bid? Would you like to claim back the budget, claim back the funds over a period of 5 years as outlined in the business plan of the bid? So to claim back nearly £10,000 a year for 5 years. Or would you like to see that money remaining within the budget, if you like, and then the use and delivery capabilities of the bid to invest in to the sort of activities which are clearly aligned with the Town Council's own policies and current investment, which is about connecting the businesses, about improving safety and security, improving public realm, and developing events and marketing of the place. So would you like to claim the money back? Would you like to leave it invested and then potentially have a position at the table as a voluntary subscriber to the bid over that 5-year period?
Councillor Mortimer.
I suppose it depends who's going to be on the board members when this is all put together. When there's like what you call a slush fund, it could be also not directed. I don't know, I'm just wondering, because we were on the meeting last night, the Finance and Governance meeting, which showed really where stuff has been spent and activities and and I'm wondering whether you can overdo that to a certain extent. But it would be good, if the board has managed and there's some direction and perhaps some clause put in, then yeah, it stays within. That would be my thoughts.
So if in the report you'll see the published business plan of the bid board, of the bid, and it outlines what they would spend each year. So obviously there's projected income based on the rateable values and the anticipated levy paid into the bid company each year, and then the allocation of that budget according to delivering on the priorities that were set out in the plan. So that budget would go back into those projects, and if members are so minded then and wish to leave that within their ability to spend rather than clawing it back, then it would be delivered within that. But there may be the opportunity to specify that perhaps it's focused on supporting
I'm saying
with the town
like
council.
rather than the town claim it back, if it's stayed within that, it's still going to benefit the council, but I think it needs to have a little bit of a structure, so it's not just, oh, we've got that spare, there was a hole there, we'll just plug that hole. I think if you don't actually see the benefit, otherwise it may as well come back into the town as a council. And then, because there's always you go along projects and throughout the year, there always seems to be something come up and somebody's suggestion and think, oh, if we've had that fund, we could do that, would be a good idea. We haven't got a crystal ball, but I'm saying that if it's going to be left within that, I think there should be some things, stated. So we don't claim it back as a council, we keep it within that, that's fine, but it needs to have a good direction because it's already enough on activities kind of thing. It needs to be really make a difference, that's what I'm trying to say.
Councillor
Well, it says in the report that because of its low rateable value, the town council cannot be a voting member of the board, but it could act as an advisor. And at the end of the report, it states 3-year considerations. Options 1, 2 and 3. And I would say myself that option 3 I think is pretty well what Councillor Mortimer has been supporting it, which is to instruct officers to hold a discussion with the bid board when it's formed about the potential retention of the funds invested by the town council and so on, and then report back to council in March for a final decision on whether or not to request a return. And I think that would I think that's actually quite positive because it makes sense to try and influence that board right at the outset.
Show your commitment.
Yeah, I agree.
So I propose that actually we go for option 3.
Okay, Councillor White.
I agree with both of these, and having attended one of the bid boards, I think it's really important that the non-business community does have some sort of stake and a say in how things get shaped up.
I agree.
Okay. So it does sound as though the council is leaning towards option 3, which is to instruct officers to hold a discussion with the bid board about the potential retention of the funds invested by town council, which will be reflected in the council retaining the role as a sponsor, an associate member of the bid. This view to be reported back to council in March for a final decision on whether to request a return of the funds. So before we ask for proposals, anything else they want to feedback about any other options? Is everyone happy with that? Councillor Pratt.
Just a quick question where it says we would suggest a town council officer as advisory for the board on behalf of the town council. Would the decisions be made by the officer or would they be discussed at a committee, anything that's being steered by that officer?
So in an advisory role, there wouldn't be any decisions, there wouldn't be any vote
Okay.
at meetings, and the officer, which would probably be myself, would be representing the interests, if you like, of the town council, but also the position of the town council, and that's there for guidance and support from committee as well.
And would we then receive feedback updates back to the committee then? By
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Right, in that case then, in terms of considering what it's option 3, I just need a proposer.
Well, I proposed it just now.
Brilliant, thank you.
I'll
And a second.
second it.
Thank you very much. All those in favour? Is that unanimous?
Unanimous, thank you.
Right, okay, so item 9, to receive an update and consider matters related to the Regeneration Delivery Plan 23-24.
Thank you. In this item we're talking about the final part of this financial year and associated delivery. Within the update, a number of the key projects as highlighted have been delivered or are in train, such as the development of the Business Improvement District. So a great deal of activity has already taken place with capital projects and incremental activity, such as Knife Angel, which generated a high workload up to the end of May. So there are still some items of expenditure left to cover, and so I'm looking at the potential for those use of those remaining items of budget. Initially, I'd like to talk about the public realm expenditure. I came to committee last year and asked permission to spend up to £10,000 on some improvements to the Victoria Centre, cosmetic improvements, and committee asked me to go back to discuss with the owners of the property what their plans were and to look for some indication of investment of their own in the site. So Asda have demonstrated by their investment in new paving, in the clean-up that's taken place, new roofing, repainting of the wheels in the middle of the sites. They're also looking at some further improvements, but they are taking that improvement seriously and they're looking to potentially converting one of the empty properties into a white space that can be taken up as pop-up business space as well. They're also working with Cheshire East Council, looking to put some artwork on the shutters of one of the buildings, which is closed in the day and shuttered in the day but open at night, so that would be enhanced with decorative finishes on the shutters and other schemes. So I've come back now to ask members if you would like to consider making that contribution with your decision about how to use that in terms of improving the appearance of the Victoria Centre with some additional planting scheme or possibly some enhancement to the lighting, which again they're investigating the costs of repair at the moment. In addition to that, following the work that was carried out to put new lighting on Victoria Street, which is adjacent to the Victoria Centre, there's been some positive sort of public support, even pictures appearing in social media of the lit up trees, and anecdotally I can report from one of the businesses along there that investment has actually enhanced their business, and they are now receiving visitors in the evening. People going to the theatre are actually choosing to go to their business for a meal before they go into the theatre. So and that's been directly associated with the fact that it's light and it's attractive and it can be seen. So I'd ask members to consider whether we should invest any remaining budget for public realm this year in further lighting schemes. Previous council has suggested other areas in the town where lighting would be an enhancement. They're listed in the report, such as Prince Albert Street, the approach to Prince Albert Street along Crewe Street, perhaps Lyceum Square, Market Square. There are trees in the square. So if committee's minded to do so, I can investigate those costs and come back to you in March to seek approval for further expenditure. Moving on to play and investment in play facilities. With regard to Brookhouse Drive, which is a nominated play area for improvement this year, we've carried out a consultation with residents, with children at school and with youth groups, and the youth workers from Cheshire East have carried out the survey with people they've been working with on detachment in the evenings there. From that, a number of issues have come forward, and also from a site visit I've paid with the technical officer from ANSA. Apart from receiving guidance and views on the sort of equipment that people would like to see, a lot of the responses have been around fixing what's there and making the site more accessible. And it certainly is quite a wet site. This time of year, it's like a marsh, it really is. And some of the equipment that's there is virtually unreachable because of the condition of the ground. And there are other issues, there are complaints about vehicles getting onto the site, etc. I had a meeting with the ward members for that area just after Christmas, and we discussed the same. And they were sympathetic really to the view that perhaps we should be investing not just in play equipment, but also in some of those site enhancements. You might also like to be aware that the site itself, the play area, is quite difficult to put new equipment in, purely because there's a great big electric cable going underneath it. It cuts right across the middle of the site. So it does to some extent limit the areas within that we can put in new equipment. So what I propose to do is to slightly change the parameters of the spend and instruct ANSA to come back with a costed plan with inclusion of some improvements to paths and drainage to make the site more accessible and usable for the wider community, but also obviously to highlight what can be done on the play area in terms of the improvements there, be it improvements to soft play, some pieces of equipment to meet the consultation, etc. And then with regard to regeneration projects budget, I'm asking if we can make a commitment from this year's budget of £5,000 to the Keep on Keeping On project, which we've already supported with match fund of £250 for initial research into the project. This is a professional production which will go to 5 towns, being produced by a company called Bent Architects. It is based on Northern Soul. That's the story is about 2 people who were involved in the Northern Soul scene, which was quite big in Crewe. But the story itself and the use of an empty shop in the town is more about starting conversations in the community and using empty premises. The project is quite well developed now. As part of the discussions, I've introduced the company to the UTC, and the UTC is now going to organise a timeline of work. They will have a professional set designer to work with them, and they will design and build the set which will go on the national tour. So there's a really good learning outcome to come from that. And the Institute of Place Management have now come forward to say that they would like to run a workshop with shop owners and businesses in the town centre as part of their work as town centre advisors for government. And there is potential to weave this into other projects for the town. So I'm asking if we can this year commit £5,000 from current budget to provide match fund to enable the development and the finalisation of that project through the Arts Council funding. In addition to that, sorry, I'm just trying to look at my notes. So over this year we've supported animation of the town centre through half-term and Christmas activities. As you can see in the report, images of various walkabout acts that we've had in town. And I would just like to first of all extend thanks, and I hope committee will support that, to the volunteers who've enabled that to happen, and they've been present and supporting our walkabout artists over weekends, including Councillor Y. Thank you for your support. But also I'm proposing that we commit another tranche of our remaining regeneration budget this year to activity for the Easter half term. So this all continues that, throwing some life back into the town centre before we get this bid on board and able to take on this kind of mantle on themselves.
Right, okay, thank you very much. So, just open up now to any comments or questions. Councillor White.
I'd just like to say it is really good fun accompanying those street artists around. You're only standing there just to sort of do the problem solving and to usher them away. Nothing. I mean, it was lovely, and watching the children engage with them was really nice. But most of all, it was a really good opportunity for councillors to meet people. And there's, if you listen to Mark and Mosley's stuff, he says the one thing out of all the one things he says you should do for your physical and mental health is just to talk to strangers. And this was it. I came out of each session feeling really, really good and met such a broad selection of people. But so next time we do it, I would encourage everybody to come and join in, because it's a very, very enjoyable thing to do.
Thank you for that, thank you. Okay, so the first thing to do is just to note the update itself. So, duly noted? Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next consideration is to allocate £5,000 from budget regeneration projects for the Keep On Keeping On project from regeneration projects. So I need a proposer. Thank you. Seconder. And all those in favour? All those against? Those are not. And any abstentions? No. All good.
And your bag. Don't forget your
5 grams of talcum powder.
Third consideration is to register thanks to the volunteers and the creative champions for their support for the town centre animation, which is of course very important. So thank you for that. The fourth consideration is to support for Easter animation £6,000 from regeneration projects. So, move to the proposer. Thank you very much. Seconder. Thank you. And all those in favour? Unanimous. Excellent. Thank you for that. The fifth consideration on the list is to support Victoria Centre improvements to the value of £10,000. So, unless anyone has any comments or questions, yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly showing willing, but whose property is it anyway, and who has responsibility for the maintenance? Is it Asda?
It is, yes. So they have a different management process now. It used to be through some agents and is now done more directly. So they've taken a stronger hand in the maintenance. But the public's the square itself, an element of it is highway. It's all obviously leased by Asda from Cheshire East Council, and so yes, the actual maintenance is the responsibility of Asda, but not the beautification of it, if you like.
But could you say a bit more about the improvements then?
Yeah, so to date they've obviously done a lot of cleaning, put in new bins, they've changed the cleansing regime, they've put in some new paving in the area where there used to be some raised domes, and then those raised areas were removed, but they've actually since then replaced a whole area of paving in that section. They're currently looking at restoration to all that small brickwork, the small bricks and paving within the sort of central area. and they've painted the wheel, and they're open to consideration about what sort of feature you'd have in the centre. But at the moment, because there seems to have been some public support for what's already there, they've not gone any further with it. They're also working with Cheshire East Council to have some artwork and improvements done to the shutters on some of those properties. And they are looking to create a white space, so make one of the stores available for short-term usage, like a pop-up space. Oh, and the roofing. All the roofing's been repaired in that area too.
So so that's being done. So what sort of improvements would be the £10,000?
I'm thinking, and if you're happy to do this, I'm thinking of just some big planters to get some greenery in there and potentially some seats. There are going to be some improvements with new CCTV, and Asda are supporting having some new cameras in there and allowing those to be fixed, because the area is quite a dark spot for antisocial behaviour. So I'd be erring on the side of big new planters, and once the cameras are up, to look at maybe some seating.
The thing that, I mean, there's a couple of observations on that. Excuse me. One of them is to do with the committed CCTV. Who will be monitoring all that?
Cheshire East Council.
And that's guaranteed, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. That's one thing. And the cameras would be installed. I mean, we would want to know that they were installed if we were going to invest in them. The other is observation, and is only this. On the subject of planters, there's a nearby developer who might very well be open to approaches. Talk about B&K. Just, you know, it is known that they have a kind of social engagement fund, or they have money available for whatever it's now called, but it's a social engagement and community engagement sort of fund. It's very and they do make things available. That's all I was saying. So I mean, you never know with things like planters, and I would suggest from experience nearby, there may even be some local companies that might be prepared to do that. Wouldn't it be nice? For example, there's going to be a new post office there on that corner opposite where Smith's was. Wouldn't it be great if the post office limited in the in order to sort of to sort of seek favour with the public, perhaps we're able to make some contributions.
Thank you.
I know that was the one invention that they had in Switzerland, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it's all I'm saying there is there's possibilities of sponsorship that must exist from one business or another, and of course the business improvement district itself ought to have something to say about it. So it'll be good to know what you can get for £10,000. You can get quite a lot of planters for that.
You can, and some nice quality plants.
Yes, Councillor White.
I'd like to add to that. It is linked to the big thing as well. It's great. I would agree. Yes, put the money in, but also develop a relationship with Asda to work together. Because one of the first thing, you can never get anything right, but when they flatten those cobbled hills, everybody's, I used to play on those as children. It wasn't popular. And it may have been practically they didn't want to get sued for health and safety, but I would like to develop a relationship with them to say, so when they do stuff, it's something that people want. And given that the owners of that square are the wealthiest people in the UK, they own £32 billion worth, I think we could press them for another £5 for a planter or something. So develop a relationship.
Thank you. Councillor Pratt, yes.
In terms of the lighting in that square, I walked through there probably before Christmas, and most of the lights didn't work. Are they all Cheshire East assets?
They are.
Yeah, I did try and report some of them, and I did get notifications that some were fixed, but I haven't actually seen whether they're working or not. But it is pretty dark there. I wonder if it could be looked at, upgrading it, because it's old sodium orange lights there on the wall and they're all sort of hanging off. Can we not look at suggesting, something new and more energy efficient now?
I have discussed the lighting with Asda because we've had some good conversations over a period of time now, and lighting is one of the issues. It would appear to be Cheshire East Council's, although they've been removed off the map recently, so they're not there anymore, but they are still supposed to be Cheshire East Council's. And the debate is between Asda and themselves in terms of replacement. I think that they're probably beyond
Past
repair,
their
but they
best.
need to be assessed.
Okay. Councillor.
Yes, you do have some fun with some of this, haven't you? If you look across there now, you'll see there's some lights festooning businesses on Victoria Street.
Yes.
And I think they're switched on all the year round, not just at Christmas.
Yes.
Now, I don't know who provides those, whether it's a business investment or a town council
It was
investment.
town council.
Town council, that's terrific, you see, because that's something, it actually brightens up the area. And if it can be done in one area, it can be done in another area. Because they obviously seem to be relatively safe. And it's a bit of a feature that some local residents have actually commented on.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so unless there's any other comments and questions, can I move for a proposer for the fifth one, which is to support Victoria Centre improvements to the value of £10,000? Thank you. Seconder? Well, that's great. All those in favour? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Right, so the sixth part of the consideration is the residual public realm funding 2024 to be allocated to lighting enhancements in the centre. So we've covered some areas of that. Has anyone got any comments or questions before I ask for a proposal? No, so may I have a proposal, please? Thank you. Seconder? Great, thank you. And all those in favour? Again, unanimous. Okay. Part 7 of the consideration is to request that the regeneration manager investigates cost of lighting enhancements for consideration and approval at the next O&I meeting. So again, should we just move to having a proposer?
I'll propose that again.
Seconder?
No,
Oh.
Councillor Messer.
Always. And then Nakas, I presume you would second it then. And then all those in favour? Okay, all those. So, against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's
Okay, thank you.
okay. And the final one on item 9 for consideration is to support the revised approach to investment in Brookhouse Drive Park with a view to agreeing on the final designs in March. So again, if I open up for just comments and questions. Okay, so I just need a proposer if there's that. Okay, so proposer.
I'll propose.
Fantastic. Seconder? Great. And then all those in favour? Unanimous. Excellent.
Can I just ask a little question? It might be not appropriate, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You know, at the bottom of these, it's got comments about the park and suggestions. What happens to when people make these comments? I'm interested.
So they've all been taken into consideration.
Right.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's
Okay, so item 10 on the agenda to consider matters related to the Heritage and Regeneration Delivery Plan 24-25. The considerations. Is this to?
Would you like me to? Would you like me to talk to the report?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. So, obviously, the budget was set in December, and now we're looking at delivery plan for 24-25. A large proportion of the O&I budget covers external contracts and funding, with some specifics there, such as ranger support, CCTV, etc. I would like you to consider, as well as approval to go ahead with the contracts for our Cheshire East suppliers, i.e. the things we don't have to go out to tender for, that we look at some of the other expenditure. So So, in addition to our support for rangers, we have an issue with weeds in Crewe, and we have limited resource for tackling those weeds in Crewe, either through the services that Cheshire East is able to deliver and within our own ranger resource. Specific training is required and not always difficult to obtain, so we have one ranger at the moment who can use spraying equipment, and we've got a lot of crew to cover. The other rangers are going to undergo more training. Hopefully they will be qualified to pick up the reins as well, but if not, we would like to be able to provide some cover by paying ANSA for an extra service to spray some of the key areas, entrance points into the town, etc. So I've outlined a budget there of £5,035 to deliver those extra spraying treatments, which would be 3 a year. CCTV, we now have a price from the CCTV manager for cover for Crewe, which would include some new cameras that have to be manned as well, not necessarily purchased by the town council. They're being purchased through the funding that Cheshire East Council has, but that would cost £37,027 a year for 3 years. Then, with regard to Cleaner Crewe, a budget has been allocated to cover the cost of an enforcement officer. The enforcement officer has been working in the Cleaner Crewe allocated pilot area, which is 20 streets in Crewe South. I made members aware last year that there were some changes and that project may be coming to an end. The project officer who was managing that has already been taken from that project and is providing stats now. But the Cheshire East enforcement team are still supervising activity and managing an enforcement officer being funded by the town council. But at the end of March that project will come to an end, and the trained officers, there are 2 who've been trained particularly to do this work, will both be allocated to a different project. So the scheme in itself is due to come to an end. What I'm asking members to provide their guidance and their view on is, should we continue to fund a further officer? So a new officer would have to be recruited to provide that kind of specialist support around waste management in that Cleaner Crewe area that would support the volunteer activity that's taking place, and the residents are deeply involved in improving their alleyways. You can see there's a social value report showing the value of the activity that the volunteers are delivering themselves. Or would you prefer to see that funding reallocated, if you like, to a neighbourhood officer type role to continue the engagement work and that sort of education? There wouldn't be any enforcement powers associated with that, but that is a possibility too. So I'm asking you really for guidance. There are no clear answers. This is a massive issue for Crewe.
Yeah, I remember when it came up the last time. The question I can't remember now was, as it stands currently, the project does have the ability to issue enforcements, doesn't it? That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, from my viewpoint, I think if there's the neighbourhood is engaged in that and improving the area. I mean, 37,000 does sound a lot, but then I think if it's left untreated, it's just going to be a bigger monster, and it would cost a lot more than that. I think if we stop it and just had, like you said the other word which I've forgotten already, it doesn't really solve the problem. So I don't think we can go backwards from where we've been. So I think we should really continue it, although it seems a waste of money, but it's not really. That's my view anyway.
Yes, Councillor.
Well, in a sense, we're looking at the item that's on page 59, aren't we? Which says, how would we like to respond to the end of the project? The Trust Committee wish to continue to fund an enforcement officer to be employed by Cheshire East Council. And if so, for what period and what area would they cover? And that's quite important actually. Or would we rather like consider an alternative use of the budget, like supporting a neighbourhood role or whatever it might be? It could be a neighbourhood role, or it could be neighbourhood initiatives. If you get my drift, which doesn't mean necessarily employing anybody. And I would have to say that, like, Cheshire East Council has already said there's 2 enforcement officers, or one enforcement officer allocated to the project, and the project itself specifically is Crewe South Ward, which is the, you know, is the most affected ward in 20 of its streets. And Cheshire East Council is removing them anyway. So what guarantee is there then, and that's despite the fact that this council is underwriting post. So I just ask, I understand what you're saying about enforcement, but the enforcement activity is, it seems to me, is a Cheshire East Council responsibility. And it seems to me that they've actually decided, well, we've got bigger fish to fry, or we need to cover a wider area. Or, you know, just there's fewer assets, there's fewer resources, so they have to be spread more thinly. So I'm rather doubtful about allocating 37 myself, about allocating all that money to funding a post that we cannot guarantee will even continue to exist. I mean, if we did, how could we be assured that it wasn't going to be removed or taken off somewhere else? Rather like PCSO, PCSO is supposed to be allocated to this ward, but wait a minute, if there's an emergency somewhere, they're put onto other duties, and that's an enforcement role, isn't it? Yeah. I just wonder what kind of assurances we as a town council could get from Cheshire East that a post holder wouldn't just be moved somewhere else, or take on some other work.
I think we could make that a condition of the funding, but I take your point.
Councillor?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, following on from what Steve said, I mean, if you would mean appoint another officer, so you're starting again basically. So having starting again, surely you could then put the various conditions in. So you set it out slightly different, learning from the experiences that we've gone through, because this has been a pilot scheme, hasn't it? So we've learned from that pilot scheme. And the fact that you are able to issue tickets to people that are consistently doing that, surely that's bringing some revenue anyway. So does that not negate the cost? Have I missed it all completely? Got it all wrong?
Yeah, unfortunately it's not derived a great deal of income to take out the costs of managing the scheme.
Right, okay.
Anything that's derived from it should be invested back into similar uses. That is one of the issues really.
But is 37,000 the whole amount, or are you talking there's more that we're spending? Yeah.
The town council is supporting the whole project through other resources as well. So some ranger time.
Oh, right, okay.
That's
costing a lot more really, in real terms.
In real terms, yes.
Right, I'm with you now.
Before I just want to, sorry, Town Clerk wanted to.
Well, yeah, Councillor Pratt was first, if you want, it's fine. It's not
Is that all right? Yes. Sorry, yes, please.
So I understand that the enforcement officer is just for Crewe South at the moment. I believe when we discussed it in our last O&I meeting, we learned that the effectiveness of the pilot was dropping off and didn't really prove to be working as well as it was at the start. I know that the fly tipping issue isn't just in Crewe South, especially in my ward, it's very bad. And if the effectiveness of, enforcing it's not working, can we look at educating and engaging with the residents? I know that there's an area in my ward where some bin bags are fly tipped every week because the people don't have a wheelie bin, and trying to get them a wheelie bin is a nightmare. And just trying to engage with residents. Some people, they're renting their houses, they're moving, coming and going, they may not understand how the system works. So if we could have someone who could actually go out and engage with these residents, or do letter drops or mail shots in problem areas, rather than just trying to enforce things and maybe not actually being able to do that. I just think it might be better to try and widen it out a bit.
Thank you. Town Clerk, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. The project, as has been said, was a pilot project. It followed on from a scheme very similar to Councillor Pratt's suggestion. The street scene officers went out around the community informing people prior to the Section 46 notice being in place. In terms of income generation over 2 years, it's generated £5,200 of income for Cheshire East, that's all. I would state confidently that the enforcement action is, to my perspective, very, very low, considering the amount of on-street waste there is, and specifically in the pilot area, but obviously faced across Crewe. It's a pilot area and doesn't represent the full vision of Crewe, so it's a difficult position to maintain that we serve one part of one ward in Crewe rather than a broader concept. The continuity of an officer has always been challenging. It says £37,000. There are on costs of employment, so the officer is paid below £30,000, and it's a challenging role. And that officer has changed person a number of times and left us with gaps of service as well in that time, due to the nature of the work. To be honest, not blaming anyone for that. That's just the nature of the work. And it's my personal opinion, and so it's up to you to make decisions, that to continue the pilot on an indefinite basis, it doesn't seem to address any of the challenges faced by its mechanism of delivery. The enforcement exists and it's a facility. It's not desperately successful in the concept that the incidents of on-street waste are similar, if not the same. And indications of no change or limited change. The concept of an engagement officer or an engagement resource, whatever that might look like, is entirely considered, and how members might want to represent that in other parts of Crewe, I would suggest might be a conversation to have. I want to say to you right now, I've got no solutions to this. I would suggest that the council has invested in this process for a number of years and tried a number of different ways. And it would be, I think, wrong to walk away and do nothing. So I'm not suggesting that at all. But I don't present to you any solutions. What should we do next is entirely what you're here to decide, frankly.
Councillor Pratt, sorry.
In terms of an enforcement officer or an education officer or an engagement officer, surely if we had an engagement officer and they collected evidence, could they not then pass that on to an enforcement officer to take up that job if there was sufficient evidence to, put a fine out and prosecute someone? Could they not work, alongside each other with Cheshire East?
It's always a difficult one because the evidence gathering has to be of a standard that can be used, and we've found in the past when we had street scene officers, when they thought they'd gathered adequate evidence, it might still fall over at the last hurdle, which is a decision within Cheshire East. So on that basis, I would suggest it needs to come from within Cheshire East officers if it's going to be evidence that can be used. There is an education role within the enforcement policy, so the enforcement officers have to engage and educate before enforcing. So there is that element.
But for example, if the engagement officer opened a bin bag and it had a letter with someone's address on it, would that not be enough to pass the Cheshire East and say, look, this is where this has come from, can it be investigated and then handed over to them?
You would hope so, but it's not necessarily ever proved. You could argue that the bag's been removed from someone's bin and dropped in the street, or there are all sorts of other things that can come to play, so it has to be part of a...
Yeah, and at that point you'd probably engage with that resident and find out what was going on, maybe give them a warning or something.
Yes, okay. Yeah. So that's within this, I'd say, traditional, is the specific role.
Yeah, I just think that the level of actual enforcement is so low. Is it worth trying to do that? Is it not better just to try and engage with residents and make sure they're doing the right thing and help them to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is that not a lot has changed in Cheshire East, and others can vouch for this, because it was said by former Mayor Brian Roberts several years ago, and there was a total lack of enforcement on all sorts of issues by Cheshire East, and going back several years, and in such ways as almost it's been impossible probably for the Cheshire East Council to address that shortfall. that's my guess. But the enforcement, let's face it, officers have come and gone and been removed elsewhere. I really am not convinced there's a lot of point in the town council investing in an enforcement officer. But there are other means of doing that, because it says, for example, within the report under Clean the Crew, page 47, a community group has been established to enable residents to take ownership and pride in their areas. This isn't new. I mean, I'm sure it has happened elsewhere, I think. And you know, it's Friends of Alleyways. Councillor John Rhodes, for example, is an active member of such a group, and former town councillor Gary Palin is actually chairman of one of them, because Crew South #1 or whatever, like a sort of old street captain. And they work, both of them and others work very hard on all this and in the area. So that's a sort of a model that needs to be rolled out, and that can depend. Well, town and borough councils can play the part of that. When it comes to the education, it is a fact that ANSA has rather effective community engagement or whatever sort of officer or two, which is still doing it. You've seen, what do they call it? Fill the bin. You've seen Fill the Bin, which is generally housed. The occupant is a particular ANSA officer. Goes all over the shop, giving talks. It's very entertaining, very engaging in the nicest possible way. If you want education, it's not just about the tenants either, because the people who really need to be educated in some of these areas is not so much the tenants as the landlords, because the landlords are responsible for the maintenance and behaviour of their property, and behaviour of tenants come to that, I would say. So there must be means of working with ANSA at any rate on those sorts of things, and developing friends of groups. I mean, this starts to sound like Simon Yates now in that sense, but it's there. I mean, you know, enable residents to take ownership and pride in their areas, and Councillor Pratt is very active in this area, and he's not the only one either. Plenty of members are involved. We've got the Clean Crew. Was it Crew Clean? The Crew Clean team have been going. It's had 120, 110 meetings and sessions, a monthly meeting. It's a kind of social activity once a month, but it does stuff. And there are other groups that would be invidious to name them. But that's, you know, there's lots of people who are quite struck by that. You can see the value of it. It's certainly very popular at the moment in one part of the town, and even MPs and candidates have undertaken that, because it's, you know, it's valued by people when we see if you can encourage that. And landlords of tenanted properties are important people to get hold of. And probably Cheshire East Council's housing standards people, they'll have records, not full records, but pretty extensive records.
And they do, they've been part of the project.
Yeah, exactly, and they can, and they're still there. They're still available on occasion to help. So there's, there's another alternative, as it says. I mean, my answer to the question is anyway, does committee wish to continue? Well, I don't. I don't want to see funding an enforcement officer who gets pinched or goes off to some other job. Would we like to consider alternative use of the budget? Well, I think there's got to be alternative uses of that budget, which is why it now appears, I think, in the draft budget as Clean the Crew, not enforcement officer.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Well, following on what Pete says, to really get a bit more meat on the bones, I'm with Councillor Houghton about it's not worth the investment because of the gaps that we My other thought was, and it might be way far out and absolutely ridiculous and would never be done in 1 million years, but I mean, you know, we do have a refuse department who collect our bins all the time. You know, like, I don't understand why we can't liaise with the bin men and have the funding so they play their role, they've got the equipment, they've got the means to dispose of it correctly. So, like, can't you somehow have some bid or some liaison with them? They've already got the stuff. Where it's so difficult for us, we're going to have to educate, we're going to have to dispose of, there's a lot of time invested, and like you, Pete's just pointed out, there's gaps, you employ somebody, then they take it off. At the end of the day, they've got the equipment. So, like, even if everybody knew, I don't know, once a fortnight, this is the extra collection or something, and it's charged to the tenants or to the landlord. Somebody's got to pay for it somewhere. But what I'm saying is, the equipment's there. We haven't got to look anywhere else. And that funding, that budget, would go and just create something that's
additional waste collection provisions. That
yeah,
was
but using it, we've already, you know, we've already got bin collectors, we've already got the disposal, we've got everything. So we just liaise with them and put it to them to say, is it an extra arm that we can do, use? I don't know, it's just a thought, it's just appeared just now. Because I now agree now, please. Reminded me, I mean, I was on that meeting, but you forget everything, we just put the meat on the bone, you know. It's just an idea.
Councillor Brad.
For once, I'm going to disagree with you.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine, you can, you're allowed. You're allowed.
But I don't think we have a particular problem in getting the waste cleared up, because actually it's pretty good once it's reported and taken away.
Do that.
So,
They clear it up.
yeah,
Sure. I don't know that bit, so.
I know that the Rangers are also
I
good as
don't
well.
know that bit.
It's not
Yeah.
the main problem.
It's all down to crew town wages and actually.
Yeah, I didn't realise.
Who come and clear it off.
It depends on the area.
Depends on where it is, yeah.
I didn't realise that bit. Yeah, I didn't realise. What, they actually dispose and get rid of it all?
Yeah,
Don't forget it. Right.
So, just to have a look at the, obviously, it does seem that people are leaning towards the considered alternate use of the budget. And it is part of the considerations. I would prefer to go down the list themselves, so when we get to that we can have a look at that in more detail. But it does sound that we've got a lot of ideas as the alternative use of budget.
Can I come back on that, Chair? Sorry.
Yes.
Just thinking on for what's just been said. One of the biggest problems I'm sure we all have is bins that are corrupted, as they are called. So therefore, nobody will come back and touch them because they're corrupted. Now, what I've had to do in the past is get somebody from ANSA, who's always been very, very compliant, you know who I mean, and they do come out and they will take the corrupted bins away. And consequently, that household no longer has a silver bin or a black bin or whatever. Now, I would see that £37,000 as a better use in funding that sort of direct action. Because the more we become compliant with residents who are not, for use of a better word, towing the line, we are constantly creating a cost, either for Cheshire East or for ourselves. So my thought would be that maybe as a one-off sort of pilot scheme, that places that are consistently corrupting their bins and therefore they're just left there to stand for as long as, there has to be some sort of leafleting of that area in numerous languages, obviously, because that's another issue we have to address. And basically go in and the landlords will come back at us. We have to have some plan B to shield whoever is going out there because of the landlords. But I think it has to be a shock attack, because otherwise you go around in circles. And you literally, and I'm not saying it's our responsibility as a town council, but I think the conversation has to be had with the refuse department, not necessarily the bin men themselves, you know, upper echelons in the hub at Middlewich, that this must be done, this must be tried. We've tried the cleaning up of the alleyways, which has worked beautifully. Now we have to look at the root problem of the bins that are never going to be moved.
Yeah, can I just respond to that in terms of the pilot project? A lot of work's been done on removing bins from streets. So some of it's been about enforcing a policy that isn't enforced elsewhere in Cheshire East, which is insisting that bins are removed from the street after collection day. They're only put out just before collection and they have to be removed again.
That doesn't work.
And the other part of that is I can't remember the numbers. It's in the report. I think over 200 bins have actually been removed, full stop, from the area because they were left contaminated or unclaimed in the street.
We need to be a lot more proactive in doing that.
Yeah.
Instead of threatening it, we need to go out and do it. But whether you warn the people before and the landlords before, that's a grey area, isn't it? They know they're doing wrong, I think, but they're just playing the system.
Councillor Brent,
Go on, sorry.
So I totally agree with what Councillor Ratterton said about the contaminated bins, because they'll eventually get taken away. The resident won't have a bin and they'll just fly tip every week and get reported, cleared up and pay the cost for it. So totally agree about trying to get to the bottom of it and work with the residents and the landlords to address these issues.
I'm not sure that's what I said. I said go out there and take them.
That's it, yeah.
The days of kowtowing and suggesting that, these lovely landlords, will do this or do that. No, this has been going on for far too long. Let's grasp the nettle and let's have a pilot scheme where we go in and we take corrupted bins that we know have been there. Maybe the guys collecting them would put a tag on them, so we'd know over a course of weeks that's how long they've been there. There are ways to do this, but we can't pussyfoot around because our streets and our residents are suffering because of that.
sorry, Councillor Mortimer.
I think, I'm a landlord myself, so if I had a letter and, I was told I'm going to be fined because my tenant is constantly doing this, oh boy, they won't be doing it again. So I think there is some, I don't know if that's already been trialled, but I think if you know who the landlords are, then they would go out. I think that would at least half it. It just would. Landlords will not ever put up with that. They will not ever think, oh my God, I'm going to get £100 less on my rent this week. They'll soon get into action. That's the. Not me per se, but I'm just saying. The money side, but I'm saying they would be reactive. They would go and see them, and they would be reactive. Trust me. I don't think it will happen.
Councillor.
So I'm just trying to clarify this one. So so you take away the contaminated bins, and then they haven't got a bin, and then they drop the stuff on the floor. And at that point, I guess it becomes a criminal offence because you're leaving stuff out there.
Fly tipping,
More
or less, isn't it?
So who will be doing the fines for fly tipping then? Because I think you've got
this is the thing, isn't it?
We're going to stick somewhere. Because if you keep taking I think we're all agreed. If people do people's job for them, then they won't. So at some point, you've got to have something. But I would not be in favour of the wardens going around giving people a fine for dropping a cigarette butt and stuff like that. But I think we've got to reserve some sort of final power in order for people who clearly have no intention of doing the right thing.
I just wanted to state myself that I can see the whole idea of a carrot and a stick. It needs to be back up, otherwise no one will pay attention to what you're trying to say. I do know from experience there is an answer bin near where I live. It was left open and residents were using it as an extra bin or a large bin and just dumping stuff in it. It got to the point where someone locked it and then fly tipping began right around it without fail. It just began. It didn't stop. And it was only when it was opened up again that stopped. So it's a paper wall in front of a juggernaut sometimes when it comes down to trying to stop people from doing things. If it's what they've always done and people have always taken away the problem, they're going to continue to do it. So from what I'm seeing in terms of the ideas, that we could definitely, the idea of an enforcement officer is a non-starter, because it doesn't, there's too many variables that cause more problems than good. But we definitely need, well, it comes back to what we were saying in the beginning, there's no right answer to this. We could just do with a proposed plan of carrot and stick and where those boundaries are to carry it out.
Can we ask that report be brought back to a soon meeting, but a future meeting? As to how we would manage that, whether it was a pilot scheme or whether it was wider than that.
We can do that. It's
We
just
can try.
guidance on.
We're drawing the same blanks everyone else is. That's
Yeah.
the-
Yeah,
But we can certainly give it another coat of looking at and come back with anything we can come up with, I'm sure.
yeah.
Because Lindsay's extremely closest and knows a lot about it. But please manage your expectations. It's a national problem as well. And,
Oh, yeah.
and how do we address it?
Yeah.
I think there's probably a couple of doctorates in this, to be honest.
Yeah.
Let's get
I won't get one, I'm afraid.
Councillor.
Can we not charge the owners of the property for the replacement bin?
That would be done. Cheshire's answer do charge for replacement bins.
It's the first line of deterrent in saying that, look, you've lost the bin, we give you a bin, now if you want another bin, then you're going to have to pay for it.
Well, that is already the case.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen very often, does it?
Then
Because
they
they
can
always
fight
get
it
told.
for free, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody rings up and says, oh, I haven't got a bin. Classic example, street this week, there's been a brand new bin put outside the house front door.
But they may have paid for it. You don't know.
No,
You know.
that's what I'm saying.
You know.
I don't know whether you've made
£35
pay for it
it's-
or not, but it's a bigger bin than usual for the street anyways.
And with a lot of brown bins.
It'll start for the normal when you start.
Are there any other comments or questions, Councillor?
Yeah, I mean, it's, at the end of the day, it seems to me the town council hasn't got enforcement powers. It just doesn't have them. And when it comes to, supply and charging of bins, we certainly haven't got those powers. That rests in the end with Cheshire East Council or as appropriate with AMSA. I do wonder, it's important, I think, that the liaison continues with the relevant people within AMSA and the people we know, whether it's the street cleansing department or people on the refuse collection, but also, and I don't know whether we've actually tried this, linking up with the what they call them, they're part of the comms department, a small and perfectly formed comms department.
Yes.
Think about, I might say her second name, Lisa. Like that. Anyway, fill the bin. She goes all over the place. She doesn't. It's right up her street. Doesn't mind what she looks like, but it's and engages and it goes to schools. There's no reason couldn't go to community groups. Probably does that as well. So there could be a bit more liaison on that to see what can be done in that department. That costs us nothing. Probably we could probably help with a bit of publicity and stuff like that. That's just one measure.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's round and round in circles. I mean, had the pleasure in recent days of walking about certain parts of the centre of Crewe, and it's amazing the number of places where there's fly tipping particularly in front of old properties. But it's on private property. It's in where there should be a few pots or just a piece of ground. It's unbelievable, and it's there has to be something. The owners of those properties, whether they're landlords or owner occupiers, surely to God, they want to do something about it. Yes, I suppose there is an enforcement power somebody could have, which could be an untidy land notice. The land department probably could do that if they've got the means and the resources. If they've got the resources, and so it goes on. I think that's
Just one
Yes.
quick one. Nothing's been really resolved, but going back to AMSA and going back to, they're really good at getting rid of stuff. But I mean, it's like you say, it's not just a town issue, it's a national situation, and I think it's England per se. I mean, I know abroad they don't have that situation, and the reason why they don't is because they just clear everything. So it's part of it. There is no fly tipping. People know that if you want to get rid of a mattress or if you want to get rid of something, it's once a month, the bin men come, get rid of everything. Anything, they just get rid of everything. They never have this, they would never have this conversation. So going back to, like, it probably needs a whole new reform, and going back to the bin men. So what I'm saying, ANSA could be, they're funding what they're having at the moment, removing this rubbish. They could be doing something else better, perhaps. So the budget you have on that, you put to the bin men who've got the disposal of doing it. What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, I think it's beyond educated people. They know they're not supposed to, but they'll carry on doing it. You can to a certain extent, and I think the only way is, I believe, and I don't know because I've not been out and people tell me different, there's always the rented properties that this is an issue. It's probably not going to be owner-occupiers, it's going to be refurbished property, is dumped in and it's an ongoing thing with rented property. That is the issue. So you either tackle it legally with the landlords. So if that's going to be continued rented property, it's going to be more popped tax. It's got to be something drastic, like, right, council tax for that is going to be X amount. ANSA comes out every 2 weeks to get rid of the rest of the rubbish. But you've compensated it in the budget. It needs a lot of planning. The budgeting needs to be structured. But you say that house at 67 West Street is rented, it's always rented, your council tax can be 400 a month. Simple. Because you're always having tenants. ANSA will be there every fortnight to collect. What I'm saying is it's got to be something quite drastic. Because if it's not going to be resolved. I know that's going OTT, I know that. But I think there's different ways, and it almost wants breaking down to start again.
So
That's just my...
Just as a partial response to that, there is some work afoot to bring in selective licensing in certain areas, which a charge would be made for rental properties in certain areas.
Well, yeah, I know about selective licensing. It's out there. You see,
Yeah.
in my areas in Nottingham, it has been for some time. The only thing about selective licensing is, yeah, they do it, but it's mainly about the property wouldn't affect the rubbish. I don't think that's going to change. I know a lot about selective licences. It's been in East Midlands a long time. I've worked with it. I've worked with the borough councils there, I understand it. But the funding really just gets lost and diluted. It doesn't really solve the issues that we were talking about. So yeah.
Okay. Just from my own 2 pence into it as well, I think obviously a lot of things we're talking about enforcement, we're talking about things that are beyond the town council's reach. I think it's important to recognise that when we're talking about alternative use of budget, it's about partnerships, liaisons, relationships with other companies, which, although we've had a lot of great ideas, I think it's a case of it needs more investigation. If we decide the money is going to be is moved to an alternative plan, we need the development of that plan. And that brought back to us to see how that goes, because obviously whilst it's great we've got the ideas, there's a lot of the red tape that we need to understand, and we won't be able to solve that one tonight, I don't think. Not here. So unless there's any other comments, like I said, I'm going to go through the considerations in each one. So this one is the third part, and on that one I will lean on to that side of it that we're not considering considering the enforcement officer. But to start off with the first part of the consideration, which is that the above service delivery plan and identified associated spend within the 2023-2024 budget is approved or recommended to the council as appropriate. It is purely to note that. So any comments or questions on that? So it's just noted. Great.
Sorry, I don't understand. Are we approving it, or are we recommending it to council? I mean, it's a plan.
It's going to come back to this committee again, so you get 2 bites of that, Sherry. So you're noting this first draft. It's also 24-25, so there's a little typo in there.
Yes.
Apologies, there is.
So I hope it's done.
I'll correct that now.
It's not the first and it won't be the last in life.
Turtle clocks up with set, yeah.
Yeah, so it is just for noting, and at the next meeting we have to make a recommendation to council on the delivery of the associate committee budget.
The part 2 of it is operations, where costs have been confirmed with public service providers, Cheshire Council and a subsidiary ANSA. Permission is given to agree contracts. So unless there's any comments or questions on that, I need a proposer. Thank you, Councillor Zent. And a seconder. Thank you very much. So all those in favour? Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay. So yes, as we've been discussing with part 3 regard to the Cleaner Crew project, obviously we're looking at the second option, which was members to would like to consider alternative use of the budget, such as supporting a neighbourhood role rather than an enforcement role. So I need a proposer for that.
Can I
Yes, sorry.
maybe Tracy, if I do it wrong, I apologise, members, not putting words in your mouth. Perhaps someone might be proposing something along the lines of that members seek an options appraisal for alternative approaches to this issue.
Yeah.
To be submitted to the next meeting.
Yeah.
I think that might reflect the intent of this discussion.
I'm happy to propose that and claim credit.
So, first of all, I just need to make sure that we are happy the budget can be moved to doing that. Is that fair to say? 'Cause
Well, you're not asked to spend the budget now. We still, there's no decision being made
No
on that.
decision
You're directing officers to come back with any options we can come up with at all, it sounds like.
So, in case of seeking that sort of plan, obviously, I have a proposal from Councillor Upton. Second it. All those in favour?
Right.
Unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. Item 4 on the considerations is to include wider park improvements within the use of play area improvement budget. So, unless there's any comments or questions, I need a proposer. Proposer and seconder. Thank you very much. So, all those in favour? Unanimous. Part 5, regeneration projects. To support animation and engagement with public spaces through supporting volunteers and commissioned activities and employment of casual staff to support. So again, unless there's any comments or questions, I need a proposer. Councillor seconder? Councillor White, and all those in favour? Again, unanimous. Part 6, public realm, to continue to enhance town centre spaces through painting, lighting, repairs and new street furniture. So again,
Do
yes.
we need something putting in there, Chair, that from the discussions we've had about the funding of things like the lighting or the responsibility of the lighting? Or are we just saying there that we're going to continue to enhance it? We're not looking for any money from those people who actually own it or have a responsibility for it.
I think we'd always work on the basis of seeking who's responsible.
Okay.
As a general approach to
So we're
ensure.
taking it as read that that will be done?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So I need a proposer for that. Right on. Thank you. And second, thank you very much. All those in favour? Great, unanimously. Okay. So part 7, heritage, to support the activities and expenditure listed.
Yeah.
So proposed. Seconded. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Great.
With an abstention.
Do we have an abstention?
Yes. Part 8, reading the Roman numerals, that all associated spend and procurement is delivered within the council's governance. This is just to note, so any comments or questions on that? No, it's just noted.
I'm happy to propose 8, 9 and 10.
They're all
That's what
associated,
it's,
aren't they?
Yes, they,
Yeah,
is that okay?
yeah.
Brilliant. Perfect. So in that case, just on to item 11, to note the proposed date of the next meeting being Tuesday the 12th of March 2024 at 6 p.m.